Hello and welcome to This Explainer. We are diving straight in today. We're going to unpack Marga Minko's absolutely brilliant short story, The Address. We'll be exploring the deep psychological weight of wartime loss and, honestly, the fundamental human necessity of just letting go. You see, this isn't just a simple story about recovering lost items after a terrible war in Holland. It's a really profound look at how we attach our own memories to physical things and what actually happens when those things no longer belong to the world we once knew. We're jumping right into the mystery here with a chilling greeting from Mrs. Dorling. Just picture the scene, right? A young woman is standing on a doorstep, desperately seeking a connection to her late mother. And the woman who opens the door just looks at her, completely guarded, and says, "Have you come back? I thought that no one had come back." It is a completely devastating line, isn't it? It reveals this dark assumption made by those who profited from the tragedy of others. The sheer expectation that the original owners, once taken away, would simply never return.
Section 1. A door chinked open.
So, standing at that very door, number 46 Marconi Street, our narrator is met with this cold wall of feigned ignorance. Mrs. Dorling straight up claims she doesn't know her. It creates this immediate psychological barrier. But then, the narrator notices something, a very specific sensory detail. She sees her mother's green knitted cardigan with pale wooden buttons. These buttons, faded from years of washing, are such an intimate domestic detail, you know? And the moment Mrs. Dorling realizes the narrator is staring right at that cardigan, she actually half hides herself behind the door. The physical object betrays the lie. It forces the harsh reality of the situation completely out into the open.
Section 2. Flashbacks to the past. Now, to truly grasp the gravity of that awkward doorstep encounter, we need to look at the timeline of loss. How did all these items end up with Mrs. Dorling in the first place? Notice how the emotional journey shifts over time. We go from a naive, trusting mother, who actually allows an opportunistic acquaintance to lug away heavy vases and silver during the war, thinking she is saving them, to the narrator's post-liberation reality. At first, the narrator is terrified of these objects. They are painful reminders of a connection that simply doesn't exist anymore. But eventually, once daily life normalizes, when the bread gets lighter, when sleep is unthreatened, this intense curiosity to touch and remember finally overpowers her fear.
Take, for instance, this specific object, an old-fashioned heavy iron Hanukkah candle holder. As the narrator steps into the house during a later visit, she actually spots it hanging right there next to a mirror. This is a masterful, subtle stroke by the author. This cumbersome object implicitly confirms the family's Jewish heritage. It speaks volumes about the systematic persecution they faced, right? It silently anchors the whole story in the historical devastation of the Holocaust without Marga Minko ever needing to explicitly spell it out for us.
Section 3. The second visit.
Well, after that fruitless first attempt where Mrs. Dorling just refused to speak with her, the narrator decides to try a second time. And fate sort of intervenes. She is let in, not by Mrs. Dorling, but by her 15-year-old daughter. But as she actually steps inside that living room, she gets a severe sensory shock. She is suddenly surrounded by her family's precious things, but in this tasteless, musty environment, they just oppress her. These beautiful belongings are crammed next to ugly furniture in this muggy atmosphere. She sits down, rubs a familiar woolen tablecloth, and finds a specific, unrepaired burn mark from her childhood. It is a profoundly suffocating moment. She is physically touching her past, but the atmosphere has entirely corrupted the memory.
Section 4. Objects severed from memory. This brings us to the true psychological climax of the story. This is where the narrator's connection to her family's belongings begins to completely fracture. It brilliantly illustrates a really tragic disconnect. On one side, we have a mother's pristine care, and on the other, a stranger's casual, everyday use of those exact same sacred items. Think about it. The narrator remembers being a child helping her mother polish the silver, completely unaware that it was actually real silver. Now, Mrs. Dorling's daughter is casually boasting about eating off the antique plates every single day without realizing their history or their true value. The sacred has become entirely mundane.
It becomes painfully clear to her, and honestly, this is a profound lesson for all of us, isn't it? That objects linked to a familiar past instantly lose their value when they are severed from that context. The things themselves, sure, they endured the war, but only because they are merely physical things. But the soul of those objects, the love, the context, the family that gave them meaning, that has entirely evaporated. Seeing them crowded into this strange, alien room, she realizes they are now nothing more than lifeless metal and cloth.
Section 5. Forgetting the address.
So overwhelmed by the jingling of silver spoons in the drawer as the daughter tries to show them off, and absolutely crushed by the sudden, unbearable weight of the past, the narrator practically rushes out of the house. As she walks away, we really have to remember her current reality. She lives in a small, rented room where shreds of blackout paper still hang, a stark, physical reminder of the war's lingering shadow. Her grand, antique possessions simply wouldn't fit here, physically or emotionally. A handful of everyday cutlery is all that fits in her narrow drawer. Bringing those massive vases and heavy silver into her new, fractured life wouldn't magically restore her mother. It would only clutter her present with ghosts. And so she makes a very powerful resolution. She resolves to forget the address. It is a stunning reversal, you see. The very address she held onto as a lifeline during the absolute darkest days of her life is now the one thing she must discard to move forward. Forgetting number 46 Marconi Street becomes this active, deliberate choice of self-preservation. It is a necessary step to finally reclaim her future from the suffocating grip of loss.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. When the past becomes a heavy anchor in a changed world, is letting go the only true path to survival? Marga Minko shows us that while we may survive the terrible wars of our lives, the real battle is figuring out what to carry with us into the peace and what we must bravely leave behind. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope this journey has helped you see the profound hidden layers within The Address.